Welcome to a beautiful Thursday, February 2nd episode of the Baseball Insiders. I'm Adam Weinrib alongside our Fansided Insider, MLB Insider Robert Murray. And Robert, this is our second straight week, 2 shows per week, where the baseball landscape bone dry. So we're going to be talking about the news we've got on the docket, a few things to run down, but we drew up an all-star team, kind of the best remaining free agents. There are a couple all-stars in there, mostly leftovers, but we want to talk everybody through what's left, what to expect. We're going to be taking next week off for a very good reason. Go Birds. They're in the Super Bowl.
That's
so we
right.
want to get ahead of that. And that'll come up in a little bit after we run through the headlines. But how you doing, man? I want to check in with you before we start. It's a beautiful day on the East Coast. How is it out there in Arizona?
It is glorious. First of all, to be here and also to be talking to you and also outside. Like I walked outside earlier. I was wearing a sweatshirt and sweatpants, and it was actually like I was starting to get sweaty. So it's much better than being in Wisconsin. So that's what I got to say about that. But free agency is basically at a standstill. So I'm starting to get bored. But hey, we got the Super Bowl coming up. Go Birds.
It is the perfect time for the Super Bowl. And I say that knowing full well the Super Bowl is always in early February. So it's not like they didn't just invent that now to keep baseball's dry spell exciting for everybody, but it's doing a damn good job. So next week you'll be on the scene picking up some interviews at Media Day and doing the whole crawl. And I'm very jealous, my friend, because I will be in New York, which is beautiful today, but gray most days.
That basically summed up my entire Wisconsin experience. So I know exactly what you're feeling. If you want to come out to Arizona, the door is always open. I offered it to Sean Daly before the show, but I'll even open up the invite to you as well. So just say the word.
I tell you what, ever since we talked like last week, it's been floating in my head like Super Bowl week. My wife is at a bachelorette in New Orleans too, so I'm just gonna be here like, I don't know, tooling around being a bachelor boy. So I have considered, but either way, going to be an exciting week ahead. And hopefully some baseball news drops too, so that you and I get to bat that back and forth. What's on the docket today? I think let's get ahead of it with today's news first. The Atlanta Braves lost a key executive to the Houston Astros when Dana Brown was named GM just last week. We detailed that and how everybody assured you from the jump, basically, you're like when you started in baseball, they were like, if you're looking for one GM candidate, it's this guy. And he got, and he finally got capped. Jason, yes, this is a Montgomery Biscuits hat.
Yeah, Jason, you stole my thunder. I was going to ask him about that, but great noticing that, because I'll tell you, that's like a top-notch hat right there. Show him your shirt too, Adam.
Yeah, and the shirt is Highland Park Brewery. It's right outside of Dodger Stadium. Right outside, maybe a little generous. I think I walked probably 25 minutes from Dodger Stadium. Just because when I'm there, if you ever been to Dodger Stadium, it's like it's not easy to maneuver at all. No. Like your car is in a wasteland. Like if you park, you're in a field of 3,000 other cars. So I didn't bring a car. I took a car there, got out, and then walked away from Dodger Stadium. All-Star weekend during the I don't like the celebrity softball, not gonna lie. So during the celebrity softball, I walked out and walked to Highland Park Brewery. It was great.
Yeah, the only reason I stayed for the celebrity softball game during the All-Star game was because I was going with Fabi Nardaya somewhere and he wanted to watch Bad Bunny. But the celebrity softball game, like they should easily get rid of that. It's just I didn't pay any attention to that whatsoever. Although it was good to see Guillermo from Jimmy Kimmel. That's my guy. I'm anxious to see him at the Super Bowl media event, so that should be cool.
I once went out in New York with Guillermo because I had a buddy who worked on that show and they were visiting, and he bought everybody in the bar a round of like pineapple shots. It was like one of those bars where it's like, I don't even know what the liquor was, but it was like pineapple juice and a bunch of nonsense. He bought 84 of those and then skipped out on the tab and was like, "Good night, everyone. Good night." And he bolted.
No.
Yeah.
Hopefully you didn't have to pay for it.
No. But I think the staff on the show kind of huddled and were like, "Oh my God, how do we do this? $390."
I would be the same way.
Like, I would be cash. What do we do? Yeah.
Oh God, I'd be flustered as heck. But well, I know Adam Weinrib would never do something like that. So
no, and I think Guillermo did it, I believe, as a prank. I'm sure these fellas and gals got reimbursed, but Guillermo, great guy. I did regret it briefly because it's ironic enough. I heard the pop for Bad Bunny leaving the stadium, and I was like, oh man, these people love Bad Bunny. Like, did I blow it leaving early? But then I got some great beers, and I don't regret it at all.
No, as I said on the last show, if there's ever somebody who knows beers, it's Adam. So, and I mean, you can never go wrong with having a good beverage. So,
no.
By the way, as the Baseball Insiders YouTube channel said here, and then also Talking Twins, shout out to him as well. And subscribe, please. That's always a huge thing for us because plenty of baseball talk throughout the year, more so than what there is right now because there's hardly anything going on. But no, that helps us out a ton. So please do that, and we'll be best pals. So thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Talking Twins. And when the trade deadline comes, we will not be doing so much beer talk, although we'll still be doing a little bit of beer talk. I mean, it is a podcast. It's not just an informational vessel, but we're going to have a lot more on our plates. We're going to have a lot more on our plates on our hands at that point. Thanks for Jason Getz, you're the man. I wish you knew this channel existed sooner. Well, now here you are. The baseball season's coming up, and there's no better time to like and subscribe and ask me about my hats. But what does a good host do? Get back on track. And I believe we were about to talk about the Braves replenishing their front office vacancy by hiring a key Blue Jays scout as their new special assistant to the GM today. He's the man behind Alejandro Kirk, I believe, and you had this. So talk me through what exactly the Atlanta Braves are getting here and what is the Blue Jays' loss?
Yeah, ever since I reported that Dean DeSillis ended up leaving the Blue Jays to go to the Braves, I've had people throughout the league rave about his scouting abilities because he has not only uncovered Alejandro Kirk, but also Santiago Espinal. And both of those guys were pretty unheralded guys. Like DeSillis was the one who ended up discovering Alejandro Kirk when he was not on many people's radars. And obviously he's turned into this star young catcher who's got a really bright future in Toronto. Or I know they have a catching surplus in Toronto, so maybe if they look to move him or they could do that, but they did trade Gabriel Moreno. So the need is less so there to move a catcher. But Santiago Espinal too, he was acquired a few years ago, and basically a trade that was an afterthought. And the Blue Jays went on DeSillis's recommendation of Espinal, who had put up good numbers in the minors. And all of a sudden he broke out. He was an all-star last year, and he's obviously a really good offensive player, defender. And both those guys went from being unheralded guys to like household names. So that is exactly what Atlanta is looking for in DeSillis when he's going over there as a special assistant to the GM. They lost Dana Brown, who was regarded as one of the best scouting executives in baseball. Like, he was a huge reason why the Braves minor league system was what it was. And a lot of that talent now is in the majors. And Keith Law of The Athletic recently came out with these prospect rankings, and he had the Braves at number 29. So it's going to be DeSillis. It's going to be a lot of the Braves scouting staff. And obviously Alex Anthopoulos are going to be responsible for rebuilding that system. But from everything that I've heard about DeSillis from people who have worked with him and the people around the league, is the Braves did really, really, really well with this hire.
Keith Law's prospect rankings were a big old ripple in this week too. I don't know if you agree or disagree, but they had the Yankees at 14, which they're probably going to be around 14 on most of those rankings. But the Red Sox, who've been sort of relentlessly dedicated to building up the farm, were back at 23 alongside the Angels, who are always at 23 or 24 on all of these lists and have been for 15 years. And the Padres, who just took the top 7 members of their farm system and traded them to the Washington Nationals for Juan Soto. So that really did surprise me. But you're right. The Braves are that, they are the Padres leveled up one additional level. They have promoted a ton of top talent to the bigs, and Michael Harris and Spencer Strider are 1-2 in the Rookie of the Year balloting this year. But beyond that and getting the final little pieces out of there in the Sean Murphy deal, The Braves have graduated talent, traded talent, and are now pretty much bereft of it. So this will be a huge undertaking and the right time to bring somebody in with that expertise.
Absolutely. And something I also really like about how the Braves operate is they aren't afraid to promote their prospects, even if they're in Double-A. Like they've done that with Michael Harris. They've done that with a number of these different guys. They're very aggressive in promoting these guys, and then obviously extending them too, and continuing to help the Brave Foundation operate. So shout out to Anthopoulos for that. But I don't know exactly if the Braves are done adding to that or to their scouting staff after losing Dana Brown. I'm trying to figure out exactly what their plan is, but DeSillas, him being the first hire after losing Dana Brown, it's a very good start. Let me tell you that.
And Toronto, not exactly left in the dust either in his wake. Signed really the only free agent contract of note this week, bringing in, we just talked about him, ex-Yankees fireballer Chad Green. Now, he had Tommy John surgery last year, and not only did he have Tommy John surgery last year, but I believe he had the procedure in June. So that should shoot 2023, cut it off at the head. I don't know if you'll see him this year. If you do, it'll be September at the earliest, you'd have to think. But this is a very oddly structured contract. It's 2 years, $8.5 million, but there's a chance at a third year, and there's a chance that year two goes way, way up if everybody declines the options at the back end. Are you surprised, A, that he got that much money, and B, that he signed this hybrid deal before Will Smith, Matt Moore, even Alex Reyes, who I know is a guy that you really like?
Yeah, this one really caught me off guard. I had to read the contract 10 times to make sure I read it right, because it's that oddly structured. Like, should I go over what it is? Because I have the breakdown right in front of me.
Yeah, break it down, because I mean, look, peel back the curtain. I stumbled over the particulars a little bit because I didn't want to go too specific and get it wrong, because it really makes almost no sense.
Yeah, like I have the particulars in front of me and I'm still afraid of getting it wrong. Like it's that confusing. So in 2023, this is the easy one. He's making $2.25 million. Yes. In 24 or from 2024 to 2026, there are $9 million club options for each year, but they all have to be exercised or declined at the same time. If the 2024 to 2026 club options are declined, it then turns into a $6.25 million player option. And if both the club options and the player options are declined, there is a club option for 2024 and 2025 for $10.5 million per season. So that is the contract. And I had asked somebody who would know. That is believed to be the first contract structure of that type. So shout out to Chad Green's agents for setting history here, or making history.
Yeah, Chad Green's agent, Stephen Hawking.
I'll tell you,
agent, the beautiful mind guy, for creating a new form of math.
Yeah, because like that's basically what that is. That turned my brain into scrambled eggs. Like that is remarkable.
Maybe they don't want us to ask about it, but we're gonna ask about it because we don't get. I mean, cool, but I don't. Yeah. Whatever.
I don't know. Yeah, but like for Green, the Blue Jays were in on him basically the entire offseason. They identified him as somebody they really wanted, not just because of this year, because he was hurt, obviously, coming off of Tommy John, but he is someone they wanted for future seasons too, because when he's healthy, he's a really, really, really good reliever who has a history of performing well in the AL East. And I was told there was as many as like 20 to 22 teams that actually made offers here, which is pretty unprecedented. And it just shows the kind of player that these teams view Green as, and rightfully so. But ultimately, the Blue Jays won out on this really complex contract. Am I surprised that he signed before a guy like Will Smith or Andrew Chafin? Not necessarily. Because if you look at the Matt Strahm contract earlier this offseason, I believe it was 2 years for $15 million with the Philadelphia Phillies. That blew a lot of expectations out of the water. I remember having somebody at the winter meetings give me a breakdown of like what they thought the Strahm contract was going to be over drinks. And I was thinking, when he told me like it might be $7 or so million a year, I was wondering if he had one too many. And lo and behold, it turned out to be right. And I thought it was a really strong contract in the moment, but it really ended up impacting some of these other guys who are available, like Matt Moore, like Andrew Chafin or Will Smith, as we mentioned. And it's kind of stalled because you would think with Strom getting 7.5 million, though those guys might try to get like a 9 or so million per year. I don't know if that kind of money is out there at this point. We'll see. Sean Daly, who is our lovely producer here, told me to keep Will Smith's name out of my or wife's name out of my mouth.
Yeah, and we will not talk about Will Smith's wife. So we'll talk about Matt Strom's wife, who I'm sure is getting some diamond rings and necklaces this offseason. But
I would think so. With that kind of dough, oh, absolutely. But it's I will say a guy like Alex Reyes, I fully expect him to sign a 2-year contract, kind of like what I believe it was what Tommy Canley did with the Dodgers a couple of years ago, where he signed a 2-year contract coming off of Tommy John. I still think the Miami Marlins are a great fit for Alex Reyes. I think that should happen. I don't know if it will happen, but I think that's a match made in heaven right there.
Yeah, Reyes' situation is sticky just because the Tommy John, we know exactly what it is. And maybe there are complications, but we know by and large, all right, Canley or Green had the procedure. It's going to take them 12, 13, 14 months, maybe the end of the year. He's back and ready to help us. Maybe he's not. He's a little slower. And then we'll see him next year. Alex Reyes' shoulder, it's like there's just a chance he's never Alex Reyes again. And he's a guy who struggled with command and control before the injury and has an injury history. You just don't know. But that brings us directly into let's do our all-star team. I picked up an all-star team of what I believe to be the best remaining free agents on the market at every position. And we're going to talk about where we think they should go, fits. This is not necessarily prediction, and this is an open forum. So, we're able please.
I will say timeout. If this was an all-star team, I think it would win no more than 40 games. So
yeah, it's that helps. Guys, it's bad. Like it's not good. The offseason's almost over. And it's a helpful reminder for those of us who are like, man, if we can only get like one more lefty bats, like they're really the things you want are not really here anymore.
Yeah, it's tough. Like I looked at the list that Adam compiled here, and woof. I mean, it's not his fault. Like he can only work with what's on the market right now.
There's some of these are up for grabs. Like I think reliever, we could have a nice debate. I like Andrew Chafin, and I like that's a nice name. Reliever, there's a lot of people for grabs. The rest of the positions, not so much. But the best, probably, maybe the best available free agent is the aging Yuli Gurriel, who I have at first. Now I know there were a couple, probably a week ago, people were saying Marlins, but that you said was never close, and that sort of never materialized. Where are you on Gurriel right now? Which teams are you eyeing, and just where would you send him if you had the chance?
Yeah, the Marlins, those talks were always overblown. That was never close, as we had mentioned on the podcast before. I still think the Twins are the best fit there. I think he complements that lineup really well. And like on a cheap 1-year contract, I think that makes a whole lot of sense. So best fit for me for Yuli Gurriel is Minnesota.
And folks, it doesn't get better than Yuli Gurriel as this list goes on. Second base and third base, we can honestly basically just shrug off. The best second baseman on the market, we were talking, is it Jonathan Villar or is it Rougned Odor? I mean, those are your options, and I think we're aligned that both of those guys are probably going to get a minor league deal at this point.
Yeah, I would think so too. I would be stunned if either of those guys got a major league deal at this point of the offseason, especially with a guy like Chad Pinder, who's somebody I've talked about for ages on this podcast, even with Carmen, now with Adam. If Chad Pinder got a minor league deal, these guys are going to get a minor league deal.
Yeah. And same with third base, presumably a guy who the Giants miraculously turned around a couple of years ago, but not really in the same boat and is on the wrong side of the aging curve. Donovan Solano, really your best available third baseman at this point in time.
That he is. And man, oh man, our infield is Yuli Gurriel, Jonathan Villar, Donovan Solano, and Elvis Andrus.
Elvis Andrus, though, a name where I'm at least intrigued. Like, I don't want to enter 2023 with him as my starting shortstop. but I'll take him over Adalberto Mondesi, which the Red Sox did. I think the White Sox would be happy to have him back after what he provided them in the second half last year, even though that's probably the best you'll see from Andrews in a 2-month stretch. But he is our all-star shortstop at this point. Where are you looking at for his market?
Can I go with an oddball one here, Adam?
Yeah.
Kansas City. I don't know if that counts as an oddball organization for Andrews, but they just traded Mondesi. They could use everyday at-bats and everyday defender, or not mostly every day. They could use a consistent defender or person at shortstop. And I think Andrews would fit really well there on a cheap contract. Obviously, they've just traded some guys off the roster, shedded some payroll. So I would think they would be able to afford a guy like Andrews and kind of eye him in a similar way to what they did with Aroldis Chapman, and the fact that if he has a really good first half of the season, could use him as a trade bait and then also further bolster that farm system. So who knows there? I don't know how, but I totally forgot about Bobby Witt Jr. With the Royals. Like that. How could I forget about Bobby Witt Jr.? Like that's a guy that they need to make. They need to make as much room for. So adding another infielder would make sense, but they need to have the sole focus in that infield being Bobby Witt Jr. To make sure he gets as many at bats as he can.
Yes. And the comments also, Jose Iglesias, Jason. Yeah, I mean, Jose Iglesias is a good ball player too. I feel like whoever gets him is going to get a perfectly solid middle infield option, but not a starter on a team with actual aspirations. But you can always flip Jose Iglesias at the deadline. And another position that you're maybe not going to be able to flip so easily at the deadline is catcher. Andrews, though, has been an all-star in the past in real life. He's on our all-star team, and he was on actual all-star teams. So was this guy. Gary Sanchez is my best catcher remaining. And the market, as far as I can tell, has been bone dry for Gary. What are you doing with him at this point in time? He was a below-average offensive player last year for the Minnesota Twins, which took me by surprise, considering they took some of the catching, the pressure of catching every day off of his plate. He was a part-time DH. He played a little first, and he still was not able to get above that 100 OPS plus. So it's no surprise teams aren't banging down his door, but what are you thinking for Gary?
Boy, I was thinking about this one. There's two fits that pop into my head. The first one is the Colorado Rockies. I think they can make some sort of sense. The one that might get backlash that I think might be a fit for Gary Sanchez, Boston. Like they were in on Roberto Perez. They missed on him because he went to San Francisco. Sanchez at this point is probably looking at a minor league deal, I would think. At least that's what I would think, at least. But they signed Jorge Alfaro earlier in the offseason, clearly looking for another one. Having two veteran guys in the minors or on minor league deals in Sanchez and Alfaro can think of worse things. I genuinely do not know if Boston is in on Sanchez, but that's just me connecting dots and being like, hey, it's who I think is the best fit. So we'll see.
Yeah. He always hit well at that ballpark too. I was thinking about it all off season. I was thinking about San Francisco, but then they went out and jumped the line for Roberto Perez behind Joey Bart. So Gary Sanchez is a weird ball player, right? What do you want from your backup catcher? Solid defense, above average glove, consistency. Like he's only going to play 45 games. Gary Sanchez is boom or bust, but he's not necessarily that guy who you can plug in and say, he's going to take care of my pitching staff while the starter is away. So it's an odd one. And you're right. It could be a minor league deal. And Jason's right. He could boost his stock in the WBC if he gets that roster spot. But it's all very odd. Now, across the outfield, left field is probably the most fertile ground at this point. David Peralta, who I know you love, Jurickson Profar, who's a utility guy. I was tempted to put them both on the all-star team. Honestly, I think they probably occupy, how the NBA just has like guard and forward. I honestly think the all-star team has both Peralta and Profar in the outfield because I prefer both of those dudes to Jackie Bradley Jr., who's probably the best center fielder on the market. But Peralta and Profar, what are you reading on them right now?
Profar is the mystery man of the offseason. It's like I've talked to so many different teams about Profar, and none of them really seemed like they were that interested. And it was just like, I was trying to come up with a fit here. I couldn't. I don't think the Yankees are in play here. I know Ken Rosenthal connected to Orioles, but I don't think that's going to end up being the final fit. I'm completely stumped on Profar. As far as David Peralta, you can look at the Texas Rangers. I think they're a good fit there. I think the Yankees make some sort of sense, although I don't think that's a direction they're going to go in. I will predict that David Peralta ends up with the Los Angeles Dodgers. I think that fit makes perfect sense. They're looking for an outfielder. They've continued to look for an outfielder. Like, that's their top priority right now. He's going to be relatively cheap. I think it makes so much sense for the Dodgers. And also it gives Peralta a platform to plan a contender. And if he does really well, then he may be able to turn that into a multi-year deal next year.
And when he gets there, he can slam beers nearby, right down the street.
Yeah, we had set that up for the first 27 minutes of this show because I knew I was going to mention David Peralta with the Dodgers just so Adam could do that. So
yeah, the comment section was like, when is he going to lift his shirt up? When is he going to show me the middle part of his shirt again? Well, your prayers have been answered. We always listen to the comments.
2703. There we go. That's the magic number on this pod. So there we go.
2703. 27 rings, 3 outfielders. And our third outfielder is Cole Calhoun, I think, in right. But again, we're truly talking about like, hey, do you need depth? Are you going to bring a 35-year-old in on a minor league deal to press your current right fielder? Then you're bringing in Cole Calhoun. But at this point, that's a guy who's waiting for an injury in spring training, you'd have to think.
That's exactly what I think too. I think it could be a little bit until he signs. So I know I said 40 wins for this roster before. Oh, that may have been a little optimistic.
Well, it's all about if Yuli can stay healthy, and then I think maybe they got it. They only have one pitcher and one reliever, so that's also rough stuff for them. No, Willie Calhoun signed with the Yankees.
Oh, I was going to say, boy, wouldn't that be something if he signed during our show?
Unless he signed during the show, in which case I gotta sign off. But no, the Yankees have Willie Calhoun as well as Rafael Ortega, who I'll keep banging the drum for Rafael Ortega. He had a 121 OPS plus in 2021, not that long ago, and he hits from the left side, something the Yankees don't have. So if you're looking for a dark horse to take that job from Aaron Hicks, I think a big spring from Ortega, and maybe he is the guy who jumps off the map. Speaking of former Yankees whose biceps jump off the map, my DH, I had to put a DH in here, is Luke Voit, who is somehow still unsigned. All he does is hit. And you open up the DH in the NL. One of the strangest things I think I've seen in recent seasons was 2021 when the Yankees held on to him. Nobody made the Yankees a Luke Voit offer that they were willing to accept. But then he mashed in August and September without a role, with Anthony Rizzo taking his spot. And I feel like the 2021 season might end differently if somebody grabs Luke Voit ahead of the postseason. Now, ultimately, the Braves had like 7 of those wild cards and they all went off. And so maybe it doesn't change anything, but I always thought he would be a nice infusion of talent that specific postseason. What do you see for him?
Yeah, Jason, you read my mind. I think Luke Voigt's best fit is in Milwaukee. I think that fit makes so much sense. You can platoon him at first base, you can DH him. And his bat feels like it would fit really well in Milwaukee. And I mean, which is obviously a really hitters friendly park, especially for left-handers. And it would be kind of like a similar fit to what I kind of thought Brandon Belt would be in Milwaukee. I remember there was the Giants who were playing Milwaukee in Milwaukee. And I had numerous people who were in attendance say Brandon Belt would be an awesome fit for the Brewers because he would just mash him in that stadium. I feel that same exact way for Luke Voit. I don't know if that's going to happen, but the Brewers could certainly use some pop in that lineup. Luke Voit and a cheap 1-year contract makes so much sense. And
rounding out our roster, and the comments are right, by the way, 2020 he led all of baseball in home runs. Like, that season was strange, 60 games long. It did happen. You have to discount it a little bit, of course, but it was not that long ago that he was gutting through foot stuff, destroying home runs into the Yankee Stadium bleachers. So there's a bat there. And every time he gets playing time, he hits. Just because he ended up exiled on the Washington Nationals does not mean he does not have the power bat that a playoff team could use. On the mound, rounding out this team, trying to pitch their way through a 38-124 season as September comes to a close. I've got Michael Wacha as the best starter available, and that's really the only one of these where there's no debate and there's a legitimate potential star option at the position. Michael Wacha is probably the biggest name still on the free agent market. And in the bullpen, a number of names, but I think Will Smith stands out. We covered the pen earlier. There's Chafin, et cetera, and Matt Moore and all these people waiting on somebody to make their Matt Strahm dreams come true. But where are you at on Wacha?
Wacha and the Angels. I still think that's a really smart fit because the Angels certainly could use more pitching. I think obviously they've lost Michael Lorenzen and Noah Syndergaard. Being able to put in Wacha into that rotation would be huge for them. But you also got to worry whether or not the owner would sign off on it, just because he always seems to invest in offense more than defense, or more than pitching, I mean. So we'll see if he would be okay with that. But like, certainly I think Wacha in that rotation makes a whole lot of sense, especially on a 1-year contract. I know he's reportedly seeking 2. Maybe you end up splitting the difference and you go 1 year with a club option, or 1 year with a mutual option, or whatever. And plus that would split up the fund, so I wouldn't put up too much money this year for that payroll. But I think Wacha, in trying to go all in, or trying to maximize the chances of going to the playoffs of Shohei Ohtani, I would do that. I don't know if the Angels would, but I think it makes a whole lot of sense on paper, at least.
It's the inevitable dance that I'm waiting for it to be completed too. It's like, it makes all the sense in the world. Let's break that Angels playoff drought and let's get playoff Trout and Shohei Ohtani to the postseason. That's our remaining free agent all-star team. And again, like Robert said, 40 wins is pushing it for these folks. So get ready for the trade deadline, because that's when there's going to be, if you've got holes, which are going to reveal themselves in spring training and as this first half drags on, that deadline is going to be frenzied. The rest of free agency, not so much. But we appreciate you all sticking it out. If there's anyone we missed and anyone you're interested in, drop us a comment on the video, on the tweet, listen to the audio feed, give us your feedback. We are always open to it.
We are, and we love it. We love interacting with the comments as well. Like, that's one of my favorite parts of this show, is like, we've gotten to meet so many different people on here, and we appreciate you all. And we love you. We're best pals. And Adam, I love you too. I can't forget to say that.
I love you, man. And I do love our commenters. The people who we get to know, who show up every time, it's awesome to see them in there. They showed up today. You folks showed up today. Jacob Bradley dropping in right before the wrap show. Any thoughts on Cole Hamels? I forgot he threw this week. Are you hearing any Cole Hamels buzz? Because I'll take him.
Yeah, there's admittedly, I have not heard much Cole Hamels buzz after he threw, but I know what John Heyman reported, that he looked amazing, or however he phrased it. He's a candidate for a minor league deal, I would think, but I would be pleasantly surprised if he contributes at a meaningful level at the major league level at this point. It's just he's come back through so much, dealt with a lot of different injuries and setbacks. I respect him for continuing to go and try to push for another opportunity in the majors. I just don't see that necessarily happening or coming to fruition here.
Yeah, Cole Hamels, don't delay your Hall of Fame clock anymore. Just hang him up, take your 5 years, and then we'll reevaluate your Cooperstown case when that is expired. Cole and Gary Sanchez, we will see you this season on the Montgomery Biscuits. That is it for this edition of the Baseball Insiders. We will be back. We're taking a 1-week break. Super Bowl, freaking go Birds. Robert and I will come up with a bet of some kind. Somebody in the comments is asking you to wear my Torrey Pines hat that looked like it said something explicit. It doesn't. It's from Torrey Pines, famous golf course. I had myself mirrored at that point and figured it out. So shout out to the person calling out my Torrey Pines hat. That's how I discovered that I was mirrored this whole time. And now you can read beers instead of seeing Sreeb. So shout out to you. You changed my life and you changed my streams for the better. We'll come up with a wager, but we are going to be back the week after the Super Bowl and every Monday and Thursday moving forward all offseason long, 3:30 Eastern time. And during the regular season, oh boy, we're going to come on whenever you need us. We're going to figure it out. We are getting closer than ever, my friend.
That we are. I can't wait. But first of all, I'm going to be stressing over this Super Bowl. Oh boy, I'll tell you, I'm going to be watching it with some friends here in Scottsdale, and I'm going to be a nervous wreck. I've actually already apologized to them for how nervous I'm going to be, if that's any indication. But I'm just glad I'll be able to win the bet with Adam because the Eagles are going to win the Super Bowl. I'm going on the record with it right now. So hopefully that does not come back to bite me. Yeah, go Birds, and thank you all for tuning in. And we always really appreciate that. Adam, thanks for being an absolute G today, as always.
Robert, you are a G as well. I will take the Chiefs to make it interesting, and we'll put the bet on Twitter before the next podcast so you guys can all follow along. I'll have to come up with something good. I'll probably wear the penis hat if I lose, to be honest, and I'll hit the meter button on the camera again.
The Baseball Insiders have officially fired Adam Weinrib for taking the Chiefs. We appreciate his time. No, we can't get rid of it.
I had to. What am I going to also take the Eagles and then we're just going to argue over the spread? Like I got to take the Chiefs. We'll make it.
I mean, that sounds good to me.
Yeah.
Yeah, we could argue over the spread. I will not be like the Cincinnati mayor, Jacob. I do not want to have Travis Kelce call me a jabroni.
No, this is a jabroni. This is a jabroni-free podcast, except for when we are trying to figure out where Jonathan VR is going. That was kind of a jabroni moment. But other than that, you will not see any more jabroni stuff on this pod. Until next time, I'm Adam Weiner for Robert Murray. We'll see you all in a little bit. See you, everybody.
Thank you, everybody.